Hey guys, Bix Weir. Quick look at the repos. Today was a soft day, shall we say? At least so far. I haven't seen the reverse repos yet. 58 billion added. We're still hovering around 250 billion overnight. The next move up is coming, and the bankers are sweating it. They are looking for rule changes now. And here we have an article out of Bloomberg. JP Morgan warns U.S. money market stress to get much worse. How can the bankers be having record earnings, record revenue, and everything falling apart, Jamie? Mr. 55 trillion of derivatives at the moment. Funding pressures tip to resurface heading into year end. Bank of America, Goldman Sachs also say funding issues remain. So the too big to fail banks are saying we need bailouts and we need them now. JP Morgan Chase says the money market stress that sent short-term borrowing rates surging last month is likely to get much worse, not worse, much worse, despite the Federal Reserve's attempts to inject billions of dollars into the financial system. They aren't attempts. They have injected. They're injecting tonight. It'll be $238 billion tonight. And tomorrow is a big expiry, so there's going to be a big lump sum. The Fed has offered overnight loans and started buying up to 60 billion of U.S. Treasury bills a month. That's not counting the overnight repos or the reverse repos. In an effort to ease pressure on the vast repo market, where banks typically lend their assets in exchange for short-term financing. That's the key. They put their money out long-term to get the big money, and they were expecting the short-term money to be there all the time whenever they need it. The overnight money is supposed to be the cheapest money you can get. Financing short for investing long, you're going to get killed. You're going to get killed. You're going to get killed. And they are getting killed. Secured lending rates shot up late September with analysts pointing to scarcity of interbank reserves, as well as regulations that limit the size of bank balance sheets and their repo lending capacity as the potential culprits. They've known about these rules for a hell of a long time. And they purposefully, because they wanted the banks to bail them out of these shitty assets, are making this shit happen. JP Morgan says it's not convinced the Fed has resolved the issues. JP Morgan keeps popping up, huh? JP Morgan, JP Morgan, JP Morgan. The big squeeze. There we have. This is what it looks like over the last week. Or 2 weeks. Yeah. Rates are going to keep jumping up. Now, what does Jamie Dimon say he wants to do? He wants to change the rules. Well, the Fed can't really do that, and the SEC can't really do that, and all the regulators can't really do that because right now everybody's staring at them saying, what the hell are you doing? So what's going on right now behind closed doors? Literally behind closed doors right now. Fed pitches liquidity rule tweak to ease repo stress. Global Markets understands that the U.S. Federal Reserve has proposed creating a standing repo facility that could be counted as part of banks' regulatory liquidity limits to prevent another spike. So the banks can't stay within their liquidity limits, the requirements. They don't have the cash, and they don't want to sell their assets because obviously their assets are worthless. So what do? They go to the Fed and say, hey, put up a liquidity pool, and we'll count that as part of our assets to stay within the liquidity limits. Is that ridiculous or what? U.S. Federal Reserve representatives have floated a tweak to liquidity rules in a closed-door meeting, first of all. That's what you got to understand. This is all going on behind the scenes. With representatives of major investment banks. That's who's in trouble, major investment banks. Global Markets understands. In a shift aimed at preventing a repeat of September's alarming repo spike, the central bank resisted calls for a wider relaxation of liquidity and capital rules, which some banks' representatives have blamed for causing the repo market disruptions in September. No, it's not their fault. It's your fault, Jamie Dimon, for not keeping that cash there. JP Morgan boss Jamie Dimon said on the bank's most recent earnings call that would have deployed cash into the market but could not dip into its reserves for regulatory reasons. Jamie, you've run out of rehypothecation. That's the problem. 55 trillion in derivatives to try to keep this thing together, and it's failing miserably. It's up to the regulator to decide if they want to recalibrate the kind of liquidity they expect us to keep on account. Jamie's pissed off because he's going to crash, and all his buddies are going to crash. So they said, hey, regulators, let's give us a break. Let's loosen these liquidity requirements so that we don't have to have any money in the bank and have all our customers at risk. And they're not going to do it. So what is the Fed proposing? The Fed's proposing another gigantic bailout, but this is going to be a pool that they can count in their liquidity limits requirements. So the Fed owns that cash, not the bank. You see where this is going? Complete Fed bailout. Complete. This is another bailout. And they might not call it a QE, but it's going to take a lot of tweaking to take a regulatory requirement, a requirement by law, and count part of the Fed funds as part of your regulatory threshold. That's ridiculous. Why have the threshold at all? This is how much of a panic they're in right now. Absolutely. I will keep you guys informed on that. I did update the graph on the private road, the repo bailout graph. So we're moving into some really interesting territory this week, and I'll get back to you on that. And if you watch the Friday road trip, or I lose the track of the names, the timeline update that I posted on Friday on the private road, you know when I'm thinking all this is going to start going really crazy. All right, here's another thing I want to talk about: the criminal Democrats. Turns out Buttigieg is an agent of Facebook, which is a arm of the CIA. So Buttigieg is literally buddies with Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg, we all know, didn't create Facebook. It was created for him by the CIA. Facebook's all a CIA operation. 100% deep state bullshit. Buttigieg is an agent of Facebook. New emails show Zuckerberg advised campaign of his Harvard buddy. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been quietly advising Pete Buttigieg presidential campaigns through staff hires, according to Bloomberg. Campaign spokesman Chris Maher confirmed that Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan sent several emails to Mike Schull, Buttigieg's campaign manager, detailing the list of names that they would like to see on the campaign hire. So there you go. Buttigieg is controlled by the CIA through Zuckerberg and Facebook. That's what we're up against. Colluding to influence the election. Social media. Unbelievable. No, very believable. And signs that there are things happening. This guy was really scary, apparently. And I've got a couple people said him and Elijah Cummings were working together on the pedophile thing. So, yeah. Nancy Pelosi's brother has just died. Ex-mayor of Baltimore, that's Elijah Cummings' district, and brother of Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has died. The Sun reported D'Alencario, which his name is Thomas D'Alencario, age 90, died Sunday at his Baltimore home after complications from a stroke. Pelosi remembered her brother as someone who dedicated his family hometown of Baltimore, who was dedicated. His life and leadership were a tribute to the Catholic values which were raised. That's bullshit. I'm hearing him and Elijah were taken down by the good guys. So those of you thinking, oh, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? It's happening. Elijah just died last weekend too. Sunday as well? No, Thursday. So yeah. And if you don't think on Bix, they're not knocking people off. Listen to this. Brett Kavanaugh being questioned by Lindsey Graham about enemy combatants and whether or not you can execute them without telling the public.
So when somebody says post 9/11 that we've been at war and it's called the war on terrorism, do you generally agree with that concept?
I do, Senator, because Congress passed the authorization for use of military force, which is still in effect, and that was passed, of course, on September 14th, 2001, 3 days later.
Let's talk about the law in war. Is there a body of law called the law of armed conflict?
There is such a body, Senator.
Is there a body of law that's called basic criminal law?
Yes, Senator.
Are there differences between those two bodies of law?
Yes, Senator.
From an American citizen's point of view, do your constitutional rights follow you? If you're in Paris, does the Fourth Amendment protect you as an American from your own government?
From your own government, yes.
Okay. So, if you're in Afghanistan, do your constitutional rights protect you against your own government?
If you're an American in Afghanistan, you have constitutional rights as against the U.S. government.
Is there a long-standing...
That's
Right.
long-settled law.
Isn't there also a long-settled law that it goes back to Eisenstrater case? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Johnson versus Eisentrager.
Right. That American citizens who collaborate with the enemy have considered enemy combatants.
They can be.
Can be.
They can be. They're sometimes criminally prosecuted, sometimes treated in the military.
Well, let's talk about can be. I think
under Supreme Court precedent.
Right. There's a Supreme Court decision that said that American citizens who collaborated with Nazi saboteurs were tried by the military. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think a couple of them were executed.
Yeah.
So if anybody doubts, there's a long-standing history in this country that your constitutional rights follow you wherever you go, but you don't have a constitutional right to turn on your own government, collaborate with the enemy of the nation. You'll be treated differently. What's the name of the case, if you can recall, that reaffirmed the concept that you could hold one of our own as an enemy combatant if they were engaged in terrorist activities in Afghanistan? Are you familiar with that case?
Yeah, Hamdi.
Okay. So the bottom line is, I want every American citizen to know you have constitutional rights, but you do not have a constitutional right to collaborate with the enemy. There's a body of law well developed long before 9/11 that understood the difference between basic criminal law and the law of armed conflict. Do you understand those differences?
I do understand that they're different bodies of law, of course, Senator.
There you have it. Were these guys taken out using this body of law? What about McCain? What about Bush Sr.? I don't have proof. I don't have proof on that one, but I think so. You're looking for arrests, probably not going to see many of them. You might see a lot of people disappearing or dying. There's your happy note on the road to Ruta today. It is crazy, getting crazier. I am going to do a live chat today. No, I think I'm trying to think. I'm going to save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow we got big repo tomorrow morning. I want to live chat that one. So tomorrow about noon, we're going to do a live chat on the road to Ruta. Give me a like and thumbs up. Thumbs up and like. See my picture up there at the top of the road to Ruta? That's my YouTube thumbs up. Talk to you later.